Hey guys, welcome to Sports Spectrum.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Jason. We're looking forward to this.
Yeah, this will be a lot of fun. It's great to talk to two people. Usually it's just kind of a one-on-one interview, but we get a couple here with you both, Andrew and Shawn. Let's start with baby number 2 on its way very soon. I saw it was a boy. I saw the gender reveal video on your YouTube channel. So let me start, Shawn. How excited are you guys for number 2? And then we'll let Andrew chime in too.
I think we're blindly excited and very terrified. The whole concept, I mean, as anybody knows, if they've had a kid, when you have your first one, it's a rude awakening. And so not really sure what number 2 is going to bring, but we're really excited.
Andrew?
Yeah. So spoiler alert, we're having a boy. We had a girl first time around, and this time we're having a boy. So I'm excited just to get the other experience and what that's like. And also just inject a little extra chaos into our life. You know, our first child's like 18 months. So I feel like we're just at a point where we're like, oh, we can survive doing this parenting thing. And now it's back to the races here.
So this is a good season of life with the 18-month-old, right? Like this is a fun time with her, watching her grow and develop. I'm guessing walking and starting to put words together and all that.
Oh yeah, she is a ball of energy and just fire. She is hysterical. But yeah, we've finally gotten to the age and range where she's her own little human being, which is probably not a great phase to be in for us because we think it's like all doable now. So going back to that infant phase is going to be hard, but yeah, she's a lot of fun.
Dude, we were joking about the chaos, but parenting is literally the funnest thing I've ever done. Right. Every day is like a new adventure. And so we're just loving it more and more. And I hope it stays that way.
I love it. I went back and watched your first welcome to my channel video, by the way, the YouTube. My daughter, by the way, I think I shared this with you before we started, and I'd be remiss if I didn't give her a shout out. Her name is Sarah. She's the one that said, Dad, you got to have Shawn and Andrew on your podcast because their show is, and their YouTube channel is so awesome. The East family, she watches it and has watched all of your episodes. So I went back, I had watched some, but not all of them. But I went back and watched the very first one, which was December 17th, 2015. You guys weren't even married yet. So I want to ask, I guess, going back, because I'm always curious about sort of the content creation world, the idea of starting a YouTube channel. Where did that come from? Or did you know even when you were starting it that it was going to turn into what it turned into?
It was kind of all over the place. So we were engaged at the time, and Andrew was getting ready to bounce around the NFL. I was coming off of my career, and we had kind of started to see that YouTube world. I don't know. You just started it one day.
I know. Yeah. You like blame me for starting a YouTube channel. No, so I had signed with the Chiefs and they got released after 3 months. And I was like, man, I'm trying out for all these teams. Like I can't get a real job because I got to travel every week to like do these tryouts. And so we had a friend who started a YouTube channel there, and they told us that we should look into it. So I said, okay, why not? Like we're doing our wedding planning and we're engaged. So this might be fun stuff to document. And so we put up that first video, and I think you could agree here, Jason. It was not awesome, but it was a start.
So bad.
And it's funny to see how far we've come. So.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And you mentioned getting engaged. I saw that you got engaged at Wrigley Field. You know, this is sports. This is also faith. And we'll talk the faith side in a second. All right. So tell the story, because I don't know the story of being engaged in Wrigley Field, like everything behind that. Like, how does that happen, Andrew? Start with Andrew's story. Well, I'll start with Shawn's story first. And then
So I was asked to throw out the first pitch because coincidentally that year, as kind of like a promotion, the U.S. National Championships for Gymnastics were being hosted in Chicago. So a big way for us to kind of promote that event and sell tickets is to kind of cross promote in other areas. So I went to throw the first pitch to promote gymnastics, and he was in training camp at the time. And out of the blue, he was like, I'm going to come down. I want to see you throw a first pitch. Side story, I hadn't thrown a first pitch in many years since then because I threw the first pitch out at the Des Moines Cubs game.
Yeah.
And hit ESPN's not top 10 many weeks in a row.
Yes.
It was the most embarrassing moment of my life. So this was like my quote unquote comeback. And so Andrew said he was going to be there. He was practicing with me and everything.
Yeah. Okay. I had just purchased the ring and I thought I was going to wait like 4 months. I sat with the mentor. He said, you should just do it the next memorable moment. And so that was the next day when Shawn was throwing the pitch. I said, all right, let's do this. So it was not really planned. I actually didn't have permission until like 2 hours before it happened. So I was so nervous.
Permission from the Cubs, by the way, not my dad.
Yeah, I had to let everybody know, like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Can we make it happen? Anyway, she said yes.
I will say, with a couple hours notice, he somehow managed to have custom jerseys made with his last name on them. He got the Cubs involved. They had like a whole camera crew. He got USA Gymnastics involved. It was
the camera crew was not my doing. Anyway, there's a lot of nuances, but it happened. Pulled it off. So.
Andrew, I mean, who were the connections that you had to get to Wrigley Field to get all that done? I mean, that's impressive.
I literally like found some random connection at USA Gymnastics who Shawn was up there with. And anyway, they helped me out a ton.
So. Yeah. That's awesome. Shawn, did you bounce the pitch? How did the pitch go?
I actually made the pitch. Oh, and that was the funniest part of the day is I obviously had no idea what was going on. And he was just MIA all day. And I was like, this is my big moment for my comeback of a first pitch. And you're just ghosting me. And he promised me he'd help me like warm up on the sideline, like everything. And it's not sideline, is it?
No.
Yeah.
No, the dugout.
Sorry.
Dugout, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And he just wasn't there. And I was so pissed at him. But it was for a good reason.
Yeah.
But I did make it. I made it. And I was really proud.
I love that. She's Shawn Johnson East. He's Andrew East. They're joining us here on Sports Spectrum. They have their YouTube channel, The East Family, and their podcast, Couple Things Podcast, is out there as well. You can subscribe and download and listen to their show. This show is the intersection of sports and faith. And this is a podcast where we like to talk sports, but we like to bring Jesus back into the conversation. And you both have shared and talked about your faith. I saw the second edition, if you will, on the I Am Second page. Shawn, I know you did a first edition, if you will, with I Am Second as well back in the day. Can you kind of both share about the importance of faith and Christ in your life? Shawn, you can start, but I just know that that's a real important priority for both you guys.
Yeah. For me, it was this long kind of journey. I was definitely raised in a faith-based family, but not like the church-going family. So coming to like know Jesus within my career kind of took a while. The way I always best explain it is I was 12 years old when I made the US national team for gymnastics, and I started traveling the world. And as a kid, trying to make sense of why things happen and how things happen, and why I would fall and why I wouldn't make a team, and just all the things that really consumed me as a kid back then. Really, the only thing that I could come down to was every competition, it would fall back on faith. I'd just be like, everything is happening for a reason. I'm supposed to learn through this. I'm supposed to grow through this. And I know at the end of the day that if all of it goes away, I still have something to fall back on. So it was kind of like a foundational thing that I started learning when I was a kid, and has just kind of grown over the years through the Olympics and through our marriage and just all of it.
That's cool. Andrew, how about you?
Yeah, it's fun to think back on how my faith has grown over the years. And I hope it continues to grow. But I was raised in an awesome family, had awesome parents who raised me in a non-denominational Christian kind of setting.
Yeah.
And so did the Young Life, did FCA. But I don't really feel like I fully life just moves so fast. I feel like all the way through college where, we had practice, we had school, we had all these friends and events, and like, Young Life was kind of to a certain extent just one of those events and like meetings that I was a part of. And it was really after college when the pace of life kind of slowed down, and I was sitting there like, man, okay, well, now that all this chaos is kind of subsided, what's the point of all this? Like what, and why am I here? Like, not to get super philosophical, but you know, especially having a kid now, and this is what I'm talking about with how it grows. Like, how do I want them? Like, why are we having kids? And like, how do I want to raise them with what purpose? And so I think I've grown to understand more and more, like, man, the identity, if you just read who the Bible tells you who you are, there's nothing like it. Like the self-confidence and the purpose and the, just the good stuff you can glean from that is incredible. And so that's kind of how it's played a role in my life. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that word identity, which I think both of you have talked about how you can easily get wrapped up in who the world says you are or how you're identified. And certainly Shawn being an Olympian at such a young age, I can't only imagine getting caught up in being wrapped up in that identity. And then Andrew being a football player in the NFL, and then having, I think I read 5 teams that you were cut by, in your journey. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, it might be more.
Might be more, but like just the idea that you're so caught up and you spend your whole journey and through college and high school trying to, achieve and, go to this level. And then all of a sudden that's taken away. And suddenly all you have left is, who is Christ and who does he say I am? And I just wondered if you guys could kind of expand a little bit on that identity. Maybe Shawn, you go first, because I know at such a young age, people are identifying you as this person who is accomplishing a million awesome things, and you're probably getting caught up in that as well.
Yeah. That's something we could probably speak forever on.
Yeah.
That's actually how I met Andrew. But after the Olympics, I would say that was probably my hardest point in life so far. I was 16 years old when I competed, and I spent every waking second of my life consumed by gymnastics. What I ate, who I hung out with, when I went to bed, how I pursued my academics, my relationships with my parents and my family, it all revolved around gymnastics, what people asked me questions about. And so when the Olympics were over, I felt like I ran straight into a brick wall. I felt like I didn't know how to operate as a human being, because I felt like my identity was gone. I was no longer the gymnast. I was the retired gymnast who had to go figure out how to do something else.
Yeah.
And I kind of struggled with that identity for probably 4 years, where it took me to another Olympics. And I was actually there working because I tried to make the Olympics, retired again, just massive identity crisis issues. And I met this guy named Guy East. He was a USA cyclist, and we just kind of got to talking about that. He had struggled with the identity kind of issue before, and he ran this mission down in Tijuana where he brought professional athletes out to build homes for impoverished families, to kind of show them that there's more to life than sports. And that stemmed the whole conversation about his younger brother. We ended up meeting, hitting it off, and fast forward, it's my husband. But yeah, I think that identity is hard if you don't have that foundational kind of like groundwork in place. It takes a while to find.
Yeah. Andrew, what about you? I mean, sports dominating your life, I have to imagine, for many, many years.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the phases that I've been through, and like we all go through to a certain extent, whatever the name of the phase is, like, student, and then athlete, and then mom or parent or dad, whatever it is for you. Like, if maybe a fun challenge we could do is, someone challenged me to do this, like write down, who are you? Like, what's your identity statement, if you will? And like doing that, it's easy to be like, okay, well, I'm a college athlete who likes to get good grades or whatever. But then you fast forward to the next phase, and that's taken away from you. Like maybe you didn't make it to the pros, or maybe, whatever happens, you're in the next phase of life. Your kids grow up. And so who are you at your essence, I think is a really, kind of a deep question of, if you read the Bible, it tells you, okay, you're made in God's image. You have a purpose. You're the son of a king. And it's like, there's all of these just points of hope and purpose that I think are incredibly powerful. If you really just stop and think about it, like digest, oh my gosh, like I was made in God's image. We all were. Like, that's amazing. What are the ramifications of that? Anyway, that's been important for us.
Did it help that you're both athletes and that you were able to kind of walk this journey of faith and sports and kind of intersect the two, if you will, together, and understanding the struggles and, the high achievement that you're trying to reach and going after what you're trying to go after? Did that help?
It's definitely hurt in some instances. She's so competitive, Jason. I don't know what to do. We literally were closing the shades of our daughter's room last night, and she made a race, like who could close it quicker. And anyway, everything's competitive, but I do think that to some extent we've been able to understand each other. And Shawn, when I was bouncing around from team to team, was incredibly supportive and encouraging like, the first couple times I got cut, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the end of my career. And I've nothing else that I can do besides play football. And she was, just because she had already been through the whole process before, was amazing through that for me.
I think it helped us bond on a level that we otherwise wouldn't be able to, because I had already gone through my entire career and kind of struggled with the very highs and the very lows of it, with being cut, not making teams, and being injured, and the identity and the depression, and just like so many aspects of professional athletics, the obsession side. I could witness it firsthand with him. And that also made it harder as a wife, because I knew there was nothing I could do to help. That's kind of one of those things that you have to go through on your own and have to figure out. But it was something that we were able to bond together closer with, and kind of understand each other at a deeper level, because he would say something and I'd be like, I actually know in the back of my head, I know you mean something different. You're probably not going to understand it for the next 3-4 years. But I could understand him better, which I think made it a little bit easier for us.
Andrew East and Shawn Johnson East are our guests here on Sports Spectrum. We're so glad to have them joining us here on the show today. Andrew, we have a connection with Pro Athletes Outreach, PAO, in the NFL world, and we have a lot of, I say we as in Sports Spectrum, have a lot of connections with NFL players, and we see the journeys and have had many of them on this show. The journey that you've walked through in your NFL journey is very similar to a lot of the guys that we've talked to. Weirdly enough, it's not, what we see on TV is the guy who makes a team and plays 21 years like Tom Brady. But your journey is really more common, I think, because it's the grind. It's trying to see if you can make it. And I'm just wondering if you could share what that was like, and then having Shawn alongside you to help you kind of walk through that. But what was that like coming out of Vanderbilt and trying to hook on with a team? And, I'm sure ups and downs, highs and lows, the whole roller coaster of it.
Yeah, it was wild. At the time, I really resented the fact that that's how my career in the NFL was going. But now I look back on it, and there's just so much good that came out of my plan not working out as I thought it should. But I came out of Vanderbilt. I was the #1 ranked long snapper, for whatever that's worth, Jason. For whatever that's worth.
There's only 32 of them, in the NFL. So
sure, yeah. And the Chiefs special teams coach, Dave Tobe, who's still there, had me ranked as like a blue chip prospect. We were all planning on me being there for like 10 to 15 years. And then I got there and literally just like mentally crumbled. And that started this whole, it took me 3 years to essentially get my mind back to the point where I had the confidence to play. But, you're right. Like there's maybe 5 to 7 guys on any team who are like the staple players, like the face of the franchise, Peyton Manning, the running back, the quarterback, the wide, whoever it is. Like there's a handful that people buy the jerseys of, but everybody else, of the 53 are kind of this slow churn of different faces, different positions, different teams. And so anyway, I think, I definitely matured into understanding how the NFL worked and realizing oh man, the loyalty here isn't the same as with a college team, where if you have a tough day, they're there to pick you up. It's just not the way the business works. And I feel like because our NFL or my NFL career didn't pan out, that's why we started the YouTube channel. That's why I had to find identity and my skill set in other areas. So I wouldn't change it for anything, but Shawn was immensely supportive through it all, thankfully.
I think that's one of the hardest things for any athlete to learn, and there's no way to learn it until you actually are going through it. But I feel like at the elite level, you will always hit that moment or experience that takes the fairy tale away from you. I mean, elite athlete or elite athletics, it's not a fairy tale ending. There is a sacrifice that is needed within elite athletics that you can't find anywhere else. And it's not an easy thing for any athlete to go through, but once you go through it, you learn that it's a business and it's a profession and it's the highest level there is out there. And it's just different.
Well, it's the adjustment when you're done too, or when somebody tells you you're done, because you've been doing this since I don't know how old. I'm guessing most football players I talk to, it's 7, 8 years old that they start playing football, and they're done at 30, 34, 35, unless you're Tom Brady. And suddenly you're not playing anymore. And it's like, okay, now what else can I do? I'm sure the same with you, Shawn. Everybody's seeing, that your career is done, but they don't see what you probably started when you were 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. And then you're just going and going and going, and suddenly it stops. And I think that's a real adjustment that a lot of people don't realize that a lot of athletes have to go through is, okay, you guys are barely 30. I think, Andrew, you just turned 30, or you're about to turn 30. By the way, Andrew, we share a birthday, September 17th.
Hey, September 17th. All right, Jason. Nice.
Attaboy. I'm much older than you. But my point being, you're going to be 30 this year. Shawn, you're not there yet. The point is, but now you're not done. You're done playing sports. You're done with athletics, and it's time to move on to something else. Can be a really tough adjustment for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things for any professional athlete to go through, because you spend so much of your life just consumed by it. And even in the NFL, even in sports where they kind of make the decision for you, at the end of the day, you have to make the decision for yourself. You have to make the decision that says, okay, I'm no longer going to train. I'm no longer going to answer a phone if someone calls. I'm no longer going to endure this and kind of train as a professional athlete. And I feel like for every elite athlete, there's no, I don't know, you're taught for so many years that you can get through anything. Like, never quit. You are, just that resilient person. So coming to a place where you say, I am done, is almost accepting that you're quitting. And that is very hard for athletes, because if you get to that level, you've been trained never to do that. So it takes a massive adjustment.
It's kind of cruel that the longer you do something, I feel like, especially sports, the harder it is to transition out of it.
Right.
So, when you're in high school, it's like, okay, well, there's a million other activities you can do. But then when you play in the pros for however many years, you get done and you're like, oh, well, all my friends have been working a job and getting promotions and, getting settled into the mature portion of life, but I'm just starting that journey. So anyway, it's tough, but yeah.
Do you have can you share your first game moment, Andrew, when you got into a game and you played? Like, tell us the scenario, tell us the story.
It was wild, dude.
Okay.
So it took me like 5 years, right? And finally I get a call from the Washington football team. They say, hey, I know it's Friday, but we need you to play against the Jaguars on Sunday.
We were actually on vacation in New York City with our best friends. Yeah. We were sitting at breakfast.
I hadn't put on football pads in like 4 months, hadn't snapped a ball in probably a month. And I was like, okay, sure, let's just see how this goes. So I had to go down and prove that I could still do it. And I passed the test. And I run out there literally on game day. I put my helmet and shoulder pads on for the first time in a long time. And it was honestly incredible. We had it was really the flyover moment with the planes that kind of hit home for me. Yeah. And then I had Shawn and my parents in the stands, and I looked up there. It's like, geez, I would not be here had it not been for all of the sacrifices and support that group sitting right there had made for me. And it was just like humbling. It was a wild game. I think everything that could happen in a special teams, realm happened. We had a blocked punt. They returned one for a touchdown. We had a game-winning field goal. It was wild, memorable, and I couldn't have written it better.
Oh my gosh. 2017, right? This was?
2018, December 2018.
Yeah. December 2018. Shawn, what are your recollections of it?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. We had bounced around for so many years that it became, in a good way, kind of a laughable moment for us whenever a team would call and just be like, okay, let's go do it. Let's go have some fun. Let's test out this new city. And sitting in New York City, he had finally kind of gotten to a point where he's like, I think I'm done with this. I'm good. Wow. And of course the Washington team calls, and literally 2 days later, I was sitting in the stands watching him, and I was just so proud. It was just the perfect way. He had kind of already closed that chapter for himself. but to actually be able to close that chapter, it was magical. I was so proud.
I mean, literally, Jason, at this point, it was like, I was just taking these calls and tryouts to make YouTube videos out of them and not expecting any more to actually play. And then this one panned out. It was wild.
And then the funniest thing, which of course doesn't matter, we would have figured out life, but we were pregnant at the time, and we were celebrating in the background because we had insurance for the baby.
Yeah.
We were like, yes, he played a game.
It kicks in, right? The insurance is there. That's all that matters. It's funny. That's such a great story. And it's really a fascinating look, I think, for fans to think it's not all, it's not roses and blue skies. I mean, you're literally sitting on vacation, you get a call and you're like, I haven't snapped the ball in a month, but we're going to go. We're going to say yes. And we're going to do this. That is in many ways the life of many NFL players.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So crazy. I love it. Shawn and Andrew, as we wind down, I do want to ask you one question about platform and kind of publicity, right? With this, you guys have both dealt with publicity in the past, but now this sort of YouTube channel, 1 million subscribers, 1.2 million to be exact, and the podcast, lots of people listening and watching, eyes on you, social media. Walk us through how you steward that properly, because platform can get difficult sometimes when there's mean people on the internet. I don't know if you knew this, but there's some mean people that are out there. A lot of trolls. There's things that can happen, with everybody having an opinion on everything. How have you guys been able to handle sort of publicity and stewarding your platforms well with grace, humility, obviously being Christ-like? How have you been able to do that? What are some tips, some thoughts, and maybe some of the harder moments too that you've had to kind of walk through? Shawn, I'll start with you.
I think for me, when we first started kind of going into that as a couple, I had already kind of been through the gamut as far as like PR and media within my Olympic career. And I felt like I did everything right back then for what it was I was expected to do. So answering the politically correct questions and wearing the face and wearing the brands. But when I got a little older and we started talking about kids, I started looking back on that and saying, it's just not relatable, especially if we're wanting to steward our platforms. My biggest pet peeve is when you look out and you see media and it's so perfect and it's so polished and it's so edited, and it's just not life. I mean, that's not what we are as human beings. We are messy and we make mistakes and we go through crap and we argue and we have heartbreak and all of these things. And I hated that for so many years I was taught within the publicity realm to mask that and to just show a brave face. So when we started kind of sharing our life, that was one of our big missions, was to not hide all of that and to show the world that it's okay to be human beings. And even at the highest level, people are still human and we still make mistakes and we learn from it and we have to learn how to get back up. But I don't know. I feel like we try to navigate that on a daily basis by reflecting on what it is we feel and how we feel about the stuff we put out. If it's too edited, if it's too perfect, if it's too polished, or if we're like triggered by something, then we talk about it and we try to say, okay, we made a mistake here, but we're going to correct it.
Andrew.
Yeah. Actually, one of the couples we interviewed shared this with us. It was Drew Holcomb said, the human part was not made for fame. And that was kind of profound because I was at the same time reading a Tozer book, and in it, he mentions how, we're not really built as humans to deal with the pain and suffering of millions and the multitudes that we see on the news every day, or deal with the criticisms of millions of people that you can subject yourself to on social media. And so I think we try to just realize that there are people. We try to cultivate a really positive community. I think not being sassy back to fans and encouraging other people being kind to each other is kind of like a foundation or practice that we try to uphold, but also realizing that, not every situation merits the opinion of millions of people. So on those important subjects, we really, rely upon our strong community of family and friends. And, we might share it with the social media platforms, but we realize that there's certain people who are better to listen to than others, and depending on the situation. So that's kind of our approach to it.
Well, you also realize that not everything needs to be shared, which is probably weird to say when you have a YouTube channel and social media platforms that are large, but you probably have a lot that you don't share, I would imagine, too, right?
We do. We've learned over the years that we definitely need boundaries within sharing our life. And there are things that we want to just share amongst just the two of us and just our family. And there's things that we feel like are valuable to share with the world. It's something we learn from or need to learn from. We've actually posted a lot of things in the past where we ask people to kind of hold our hand and walk us through it if we haven't figured it out or if we're struggling with it. But yeah, we've definitely put up boundaries.
I mean, here's the thing, honestly, like nobody in history has been in this situation where we are now, where like, oh, you can vlog your family. So we just try to keep it like a constant conversation and like go about it thoughtfully. And, you know, we have a group of mentors that we ask questions to. We don't know how it's going to turn out, but we're putting our best foot forward and seeking all the advice we can as we walk through this.
Absolutely. That's good. As we wind down, I want to ask you guys both the same question I ask all of our guests as a last question on the show. It's an easy question. Sometimes it's not an easy answer. Sometimes it is. What is God teaching you both right now? You know, he teaches us something new every day. It feels like. What is he teaching you both right now? What's the lesson that the Lord is kind of impressing on your hearts over the last, whatever it is, days, weeks, months? What's he teaching and showing you? Shawn, we'll start with you.
I'd say I'm being taught more than ever, just blind faith, especially being a parent and being pregnant. And I tend to worry, and I am one of those that I want to map out every decision and every single moment I'm going to go through in the next 9 months that our baby is going to go through. And you learn very quickly as a parent, you really don't have that much control over all of it. Yep. And I think for me, it's just every day, it's a reminder of just blind faith, and you just gotta trust and walk through it and just enjoy it as best you can.
That's good. How about you, Andrew?
Yeah, it's a fun phase. I'm listening to a Matt Chandler series called Beautiful Design. And he talks about how we are made in the image of God. And then, you know, pairing that with the experience of parenting and seeing, you know, like this child who's learning so much and exploring all these things. I feel like I have learned how everyone is really amazing. Like if you give them the benefit of the doubt, like there is something really special and beautiful about any human being, which is, you know, in the past year with all this, the turmoil that's happened, it's kind of, I got to a point of kind of hopelessness, and I was kind of bummed out, like, dang, there's not a lot of unity happening right now. Like, what's the deal? But when I realized that there's something beautiful about everybody, it kind of reinvigorated the excitement that I had of going out and interacting with people.
And how great of a communicator is Matt Chandler, huh?
So good. So good.
One of my favorites. I've had the pleasure of having him on the show, and he's just one of the best. His books are amazing. Andrew East, Shawn Johnson East. Thanks, guys, for being here on the show. Make sure you go, if you're not already subscribing to their YouTube channel, the East Family, and their podcast, Couple Things Podcast. And the fact that they're going to be a family of 4 in just a few weeks, pretty cool, exciting times for the East family. Thanks for joining us, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.